Welcome to the Finding Financial Freedom podcast with the Frugal Physician, where Dr. Disha Spath will be your companion on this exciting financial adventure. Get ready to conquer debt, build wealth, and embrace a mindful spending lifestyle that will empower you to live life on your own terms.
Pearson Ravitz' story begins with Dr. Stephanie Pearson, a passionate OB-GYN at the height of her career. But then, a shoulder injury struck during a precipitous delivery. Her dreams were shattered, leaving her unable to practice medicine. Determined to make a difference, Stephanie became an advocate for her peers, guiding them through the complex disability process. Alongside insurance expert Scott Ravitz, Stephanie founded Pearson Ravitz, a company determined to approach insurance differently. Together, they set their mission to educate and empower physicians to protect their most valuable asset, their income, and the most important people in their life, their family. Today, Pearson Ravitz serves the medical community in all 50 states. At Pearson Ravitz, they understand the unique concerns of physicians. Physician-founded and physician-focused, Pearson Ravitz builds human connections before they create quotes. Life can change in an instant. It's hard to imagine that a sudden illness or injury could leave you and your family in a devastating financial situation. But with a little planning and guidance, you can prepare for every possibility. Visit PearsonRavitz.com to schedule your consultation with a Pearson Ravitz advisor. Welcome back to Finding Financial Freedom with the Frugal Physician, the podcast dedicated to giving you the tools and insights to make smart financial decisions and build security. I'm your host, Dr. Disha Spath. And today we're thrilled to have an exciting lineup of expertise. We'll be discussing essential topics for doctors, like forming and managing business entities to protect assets, maximize tax efficiency, and ensure compliance under the Corporate Transparency Act. Today we're joined by Ted Sutton, a licensed attorney with Corporate Direct, who has hands-on experience helping clients establish LLCs and navigate complex compliance requirements. But that's not all. We are also featuring Garrett Sutton, the founder of Corporate Direct and Sutton Law Center, and a best-selling author known for books like Start Your Own Corporation and Loopholes of Real Estate. Garrett is an expert in asset protection with over 30 years of experience and more than 1 million books sold, and he's part of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Advisors. Garrett and his team at Corporate Direct help over 14,000 clients protect their assets, especially under the new Corporate Transparency Act, and they are here to share their expertise with you on this sponsored episode. Garrett and Ted, thank you for both being here. Let's dive in. Well, welcome, Garrett and Ted, to the podcast. How are you today?
Great. Thanks for having us, Disha.
Yep, we're doing well. Thanks again for having us on.
Thank you for coming on. I'm really excited to get into this today. Garrett, could you please start off by telling us a little bit about yourself? You've been in the business for a long time, and I'd love to hear about your journey.
Well, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area and went to Berkeley and then law school in San Francisco. Really liked the mountains and Lake Tahoe, so I moved up to Reno. And I've taken the California bar and the Nevada bar, and I've been practicing in Reno for 35 years. I became very fortunate to become associated with Robert Kiyosaki and the Rich Dad Advisor Group. So I've written 8 books in Robert Kiyosaki's series. Let's see if I have any here. Here's one, Veil Not Fail, on how to maintain your corporate veil of protection. So
awesome.
It's been great traveling with Robert and the team around the world, talking about financial education. The importance of gaining this information yourself because they don't teach it in the schools. And so then I had a kid, and here he is. So I'll let him describe his journey.
For sure. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Ted Sutton. I'm Garrett's son. Another thing I want to mention is that my mom, his wife, is a physician as well. So she's a radiation oncologist. She just retired in March. And so the street I grew up on was called Pill Hill because there were a bunch of other doctors on the street. So I'm very familiar. My family members are doctors. My neighbors were doctors. And some of my childhood friends are now doctors too. So we're very familiar with people who are physicians. Grew up in Reno, Nevada, lived with them before college. Went to college at the University of Utah, got a degree in mining engineering, I worked at a mine in Chile the summer before I graduated, and it made me realize it wasn't for me. So after I graduated, I took a year off and decided to go to law school to follow my dad's footsteps. I went to Wyoming for that. Graduated 2 years ago, have taken 2 bar exams, and now I'm licensed to practice law in 3 states. And over the past 2 years, I've worked with my dad. We have a good working relationship, and I've learned a lot about corporate law as well as the new Corporate Transparency Act, which is a new law that affects pretty much every physician out there. So, that'll be exciting to talk about.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into that. Garrett and Ted, thank you so much for your time. Garrett, it's so inspiring to hear about your journey, and Rich Dad Poor Dad and Robert Kiyosaki have definitely been a very powerful force in the physician finance space and in the finance space in general. So really excited to get into this with you. And let's start with first, we're talking about corporations, and some physicians might feel like, yeah, what does this have to do with me? Can you please explain why some physicians may want to create business structures for, say, their real estate or even, their practices if they own private practices?
Well, as a physician, you're subject to risk. There's all sorts of suits, malpractice, et cetera. And so on a malpractice claim, you can't really protect yourself personally. You're going to have insurance, of course. But, and you're going to work for a hospital as an employee, perhaps. But in private practice, you really should have your own entity, a corporation or an LLC, plus insurance. Now, the risk is that someone gets a judgment against you and your assets are exposed. So we need to go beyond having just your practice in a corporation or LLC. You need to have all your real estate, your brokerage accounts, all your other accounts should also be in LLCs. So a typical structure for us is a doctor who will have a house. And typically we use the homestead exemption. It works in most states to protect the equity in the house. The doctor will have a brokerage account, stocks, bonds, cash. We put that in a separate LLC. The doctor hopefully is investing in real estate. We would have an LLC on title to the property where the property is located. So we have a doctor in Salt Lake and he's got a duplex in Utah. We have a Utah LLC. He buys a property in Colorado. We have a Colorado LLC for that one. Those are both owned by one Wyoming LLC for the better asset protection. I know this is kind of complicated, and we do offer a free 15-minute consultation here at Corporate Direct to look into your specific situation. But the point I want to make, Disha, is that it's not enough to just protect your medical practice with insurance and an entity. You really need to be protecting your other assets, the equity in your house, brokerage accounts, and real estate.
So you mentioned some really amazing things there that I feel like we should dig into a little bit more. First of all, so the reason, why are we putting all of these different things in different LLCs?
Well, if you put all your assets in one LLC and someone gets a judgment against you, they can pursue that LLC. They can try and get what's inside that LLC. So we don't want to create a target-rich LLC that has all of your assets in it. We like splitting the assets up into separate LLCs. And then we really like using Nevada and Wyoming to be the holding entities because they have excellent asset protection. So we don't want to just think that we're protected by having everything in one LLC. There's more to it than that.
So what I'm hearing is that we want to have all of our assets in different LLCs so that each of them is protected in their own accord, and one LLC getting sued doesn't put at risk all the rest of the assets.
Correct.
All right. So that sounds like a lot of work. So how is it that your company helps people set this up? And I'm sure there are a lot of regulatory things that we need to be watching out for. So can you give us a little bit of an overview of what goes into setting up an LLC and the costs associated with running it?
Well, we set up LLCs for a flat fee. So there's no hidden costs. Let's say you're going to have two LLCs to hold assets, and those are held by one Wyoming LLC. If you do 3, it's $699 plus the state filing fees. We file the articles with the state that we're setting up in. We prepare the operating agreement, which is the roadmap for how the LLC will operate. We prepare the minutes because you've got to show that you're taking action on these things. So you need to have minutes once a year. We also prepare the certificates. You need to show people that you are an owner of this LLC. So you need to have a membership certificate proving ownership. And a lot of places, Disha, will do the $99 LLC. And you'll get the thing that's filed with the state, but you won't get any of the other documents I mentioned. And you haven't done the job. You're not going to be protected unless you do the operating agreement, the membership certificates, and the minutes of the meeting. So we do the whole package. And a lot of people, Disha, think that asset protection is really expensive, in part because there are promoters out there that sell really expensive packages that you don't really need. We provide affordable, professional asset protection. This should not cost anybody that much money.
All right. Well, that sounds like a good deal. Can you explain to me why Wyoming and Nevada are such great places to have holding companies?
There are a few reasons why we like Nevada and Wyoming better than other states. Starting with Wyoming, the first is that Wyoming offers what we call the charging order protection. So what that means is that you get sued personally. So, somebody out there could be sued for medical malpractice, or you get into a car accident. If you're sued personally, that person's going to sue you as an individual. And let's say that you were to lose in court. Well, if you lose in court, what they can get is a charging order on your interest in the Wyoming LLC, just to collect from their judgment. But the benefit with the charging order is that they only get paid if you make distributions out of the LLC. So with a Wyoming LLC, you have the ability to control whether or not distributions are made. And if you don't make any distributions, that victim, that car wreck victim, that patient has to sit there and wait. So having a Wyoming LLC is really advantageous because of the charging order protection that it offers. The second thing is that your name is not listed on the Wyoming Secretary of State's website. So there's a level of anonymity there. It's kind of like anemone, like Finding Nemo, but it's anonymity. So
I appreciate that joke.
I grew up watching it as a kid, but it's anonymity. So your name is not listed on the Secretary of State's website. So if you have a rental property, it's held in an LLC, somebody sues that, they see it's owned by the Wyoming LLC, they go to the Wyoming Secretary of State's website and they see your name is not there. So it provides you with just additional privacy. And the third thing is that Wyoming's a very affordable option to set up an LLC. It only costs $100 to set up, and the annual filing fees every year thereafter is $62 a year. So Wyoming's really great. Another state that we like using is Nevada. And the reason being is that Nevada also offers the charging order protection. But the thing with Nevada is that they don't have a franchise fee on assets that are held in the LLC. So Wyoming has a franchise fee. It's like a fraction. I'm not going to get into the numbers on this, but it's a fraction of a percent. And if that LLC holds title to any assets, you're going to have to pay the franchise fee on that. So for any physicians out there that have a brokerage account that's worth over $2 million, Nevada's filing fees $400 a year. But if you have assets that are over $2 million, you're going to save money by having that portfolio, your personal brokerage account in a Nevada LLC. So that's where the Nevada LLC comes in handy, is more for paper assets. But for everything else, for real estate and everything else, we like using Wyoming.
If I can mention one thing, when we're talking about the charging order, giving you this protection, we should discuss what happens in other states that don't have the charging order. Like in California, if someone sues you and they get a judgment against you and you have a California LLC, the courts will allow them to barge into the California LLC and force the sale of the assets. And that's true in New York and Utah and other states. So we really want to structure your affairs. So in the end, you own a Nevada or Wyoming LLC. If someone's suing you, they can only receive distributions. They get a lien on distributions. But unlike California, they can't barge in and force a sale of all the assets. So the choice of state here, Disha, really is important.
Yeah, sounds like it. So basically, you can hold on to your asset for longer and hopefully, defer distribution so that you can protect your assets even more.
Well, and another element to this is we like for our clients to have insurance, right? I mean, you want to have enough insurance. If you're a physician, you want to have an umbrella policy whereby you have your home and your autos under one policy, farmers or whoever. And then you get an additional umbrella policy of coverage. And $1 million of extra coverage is only $400 a year. And so by having enough insurance, the attorneys know how to get at the insurance. And they don't like messing around with the charging order through LLCs. So we want you to have enough insurance and then be protected with these LLCs, which they'll leave you alone on.
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of asset protection it's not something that most physicians like to think about because we don't like to think about getting sued, but really having lawyers on your side is an incredibly calming and an important thing for physicians to have just in case you get that judgment against you. And just to remind our listeners, I mean, getting a judgment against you in case your anxiety levels are going up, it's actually exceedingly rare for physicians to be sued successfully. But this is in case you do get sued successfully, you have your assets in different LLCs so that you can protect them from the creditors and hopefully in a way that ensures sustainability for your family's survival and the asset survival. So now you mentioned the homestead exemption. Could you explain that to us just a little bit?
Sure. It started in Texas as a way to attract settlers down to Texas when they were an independent republic. And so the homestead says if someone sues you after you buy your home, and you have this homestead protection on your property, they cannot get at the equity in your house. And this was a huge economic development tool for the state of Texas or for the independent republic of Texas. They kept it when they became a state, and other states followed suit. So Texas and Florida have unlimited homesteads. Other states have a dollar amount. California just went to 600,000. Nevada is 600,000. So how it works is if you've got a property worth $1 million and you've got a $400,000 first deed of trust on it, the bank has first dibs on that 400,000. But the house is worth $1 million. You've got the bank at 400,000. There's 600,000 in equity exposed. And a creditor could go in and force a sale of your house to get that 600,000 in equity. But in Nevada and California, and depending on what it is in the other states, you just fill this form out. You can get the form at Office Depot or online. You fill it out, you file it with the county recorder, and you've taken $600,000 in equity off the table. A later creditor cannot reach this equity. So it's really great and affordable asset protection to use the homestead exemption. We recommend it for all our clients.
Yeah, that is incredible that it's just a piece of paper. It's surprising that it's not automatic, but I guess.
Some states it is. It varies state to state.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And can you only do this for your primary residence or can you also do that?
It's only for one property. It has to be your primary residence. So let's say you have a property in Texas and a vacation home in Colorado. You can only use it once. And Texas being unlimited would probably be your choice.
Got it. And so going back to the LLC structure then, since we can't do homestead for our rentals, when you put a rental property that has a mortgage in an LLC, is there anything you should be watching out for?
Well, the banks used to have a problem with this 20 years ago. But now they've gotten used to their clients having title to rental real estate in an LLC. And if the bank ever gives you a problem, here's the magic language. It's called continuity of obligation. So when you transfer property that you bought for investment in your individual name into an LLC, the bank still has the first deed of trust on the property. The bank still has your personal guarantee that you'll pay off the loan. So there's a continuing obligation on your part to pay off the loan, even though it's in an LLC. So if a bank ever gives you a problem, this is what the FHA allows. It's called continuity of obligation. They're going to get paid.
Okay. All right. So it's good to know that that's the terminology that you use, and hopefully have a lawyer on your side if the due on sale clause ever kicks in.
Well, but you haven't sold the property. You're just transferring it from you to you. There's no sale, right?
Right. But I hear that mentioned as like a fear if you're transferring title of a property into an LLC, that, a lot of the mortgages have it written that if you transfer the title, then you may trigger the due on sale clause. But it's good to know that sounds like it's not really a reality, a real fear.
And most of the time now, we just have our clients do the transfer, right?
Okay.
And you pay the bank with a check in the name of the LLC, right? And they're not going to turn down the check. So over time, they kind of waive any complaint that they may have by accepting those checks in the name of the LLC. But Disha, we just don't see it as a problem anymore.
Oh, that's great.
Here's a question. What's the true cost of not having a plan for your finances? With Facet, you don't have to leave that to chance. With their flat fee membership model, Facet is building the future of financial planning. You'll get access to a team of certified financial planner professionals and guidance across tax planning, estate planning, and more. No commissions, no hidden costs, just expert advice that evolves with you. Take the next step in securing your financial future and check out which membership option is right for you. Visit facet.com/frugalphysician today. That's facet.com/frugalphysician.
Okay, so now let's get into a little bit about corporate law and the new laws that are coming for the people that already have LLCs set up. Ted, could you give us an overview of the Corporate Transparency Act and why it was introduced and why people need to pay attention to this?
Definitely. So, the Corporate Transparency Act, it's a new law. There's been a little discussion about it, but there's still a lot of people out there who don't know anything about this new law. So it was passed on January 1st, 2021. So it was right as Trump was ending his first term. It was a part of the National Defense Authorization Act. It was actually one of those bills that got snuck in there. It wasn't something that Congress people paid attention to. But the reason why they included it is that they wanted to crack down on illegal activities like money laundering and other financial crimes that people do when they set up shell companies like LLCs, and they don't report any personal information to the federal government. So the government decided that they're going to pass this law, and they're going to find information on the companies that are set up in each state, as well as the information on the individual owners. So they did it to combat money laundering and terrorist financing and other illegal activities. But it took effect on January 1st of this year. And what it requires people to do is, if you have a business that's set up with the Secretary of State, so this could be an LLC, a corporation, limited partnership, LLP, whatever, you need to report information about the company and the company's owners to FinCEN. Now, FinCEN stands for Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, and it's a branch of the U.S. Department of the Treasury. So you need to report this information to them as soon as possible. The deadline to file is December 31st of this year. And, the penalties for not filing are very steep. You can face up to $10,000 in fines and or 2 years in prison if you willfully ignore this new law. So it's a new law. It's a way for the government to crack down on illegal activity. I don't know how effective it's going to be, but it places the burden on law-abiding operators such as ourselves and any other physicians out there. But it's important that people know about it.
The Wall Street Journal did an editorial on this, Disha, and they said, are the bad guys really going to self-report? I mean, all of us are going to report, but the bad guys aren't. I don't think they're going to catch anyone. But the penalties, as Ted mentioned, are really significant. And if you haven't done this yet, you've only got till the end of the year, December 31st, to get it done. And I would encourage you to do it now rather than later, because people believe that the system is just going to be swamped in the last week of December. So it's better to get it done now. Our office will help you file this. So you can contact Corporate Direct and see if you need help filing this. But it is pretty sensitive information. They want your name, your address. They want an image of your driver's license or passport. And you don't have to file this information every year, but when you get a new license or passport, you have to update the information. So there's this ongoing requirement to keep the government informed. As well, let's say you own an LLC 100%, and you bring in a friend who's going to buy 30% of the LLC. So now it's 70-30. You have to update your information there because your friend is now a substantial control person within the LLC. So there is a lot to this. And I'm sure some of your listeners have never heard of this before. The government has not talked about it at all. And they're reliant on lawyers and CPAs to get the word out. But you'd think they would put the word out a little bit better than they have. They've been absolutely silent on this.
Yeah, actually, the last time I spoke to you, which was not that long ago, is when you mentioned this to me, and I was like, "Oh my God, I have several LLCs I need to get this done for." So, thanks for doing what you're doing.
One other thing to know: if you start an LLC in 2025, so you decide to wait and start your LLC next year, you've got 30 days to get this information into the government. So now, the first year, it's a whole year you've got, but starting in 2025. You've got 30 days, right, Ted?
That's right. That's right. So if it's set up in 2023 or earlier, you have until the end of the year, so December 31st of 2024. If you set up an entity in 2024, you only have 90 days to get your information in. But starting next year, January 1st, 2025, you only have 30 days to get that information into FinCEN. So the clock is going to really start to tick, and you need to act as soon as possible. But, we here at Corporate Direct would be happy to guide you through that.
Well, thank you. So tell us a little bit about the practical steps involved. You mentioned ID and just the names of the owners. Is there anything else we need to be reporting?
Yeah, so there's 3 pieces of information that you need to report. The first piece is the reporting company information. So that's information about the entity itself. So whether it be the LLC, LLP, LP, corporation, whatever. So that's going to be where the name of the entity, where it's set up, as well as an EIN number for it. Mm-hmm. And then the second piece of information is the beneficial ownership information. And this is it's information about the individuals who either own or manage the company. So if somebody owns 25% or more, they're automatically a beneficial owner. Or if they exercise any management authority over the business. This is the quote unquote substantial control that's in the statutes. But if you have any management authority over the business, you count as a beneficial owner and you need to report your information. This is true regardless of if you don't own 25%. So, when in doubt, just report it. If you have any management authority, you need to do it. The third piece is the company applicant information. And this is only for entities that were formed after January 1st, 2024. But that information relates to the individual who formed the company. So at Corporate Direct, that the company applicant is both us and the client. So, but that's only for entities after 2024. So those are the 3 pieces you need to report. And, as we mentioned, we're doing CTA filings for people. So anyone out there who needs help, we'd be happy to help you.
Thank you. So is there a fee associated with just doing the filing?
Not on your own. So if you do it on your own, FinCEN does not charge a fee, which is probably the only good thing about this law.
They wouldn't dare charge a fee on
Yeah,
this.
that would be unfair.
People would be up in arms. But why would you want to have a lawyer on your side to get this done?
Well, it's important to have a lawyer on your team just because corporate law is a very niche area of the law. And one of the things that I've learned is that what we know here, a lot of other attorneys don't. So, I mean, we specialize in business formation and maintenance. So we draft all the operational paperwork. We do all the filings with the state. There's a lot of other attorneys who they specialize in other areas or they're trial lawyers. So they don't really focus on this area of corporate law. So it's important to have an attorney on your team just because they can guide you through this kind of complex area of the law. And if you have an entity, there's a lot of little wrinkles here and there that you need to be aware of. And so having a good corporate attorney on your side who's there to answer questions for you will be key to your business's success.
Disha, I want to go back to one little question you asked, and that is, what do we charge for filing the CTA forms? So the government doesn't charge anything. We charge $250 just because it takes forever to get people to turn in the information we need. I mean, we need these driver's license images. We need all this information. You can go on the website and try and do it yourself, and maybe you should try that. But if you get confused or you need help, we do it for $250.
Well, that sounds pretty reasonable. It sounds like definitely when it comes to filing forms and checking off all the details, I prefer to have a professional on my side, especially when it comes to dealing with the government.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely. People could try to go and do it on their own. And I appreciate you guys spreading the word so that people know that this is something they have to do. And if you need help, it sounds like Corporate Direct would be a great place for you to get started and actually pretty reasonably priced too, for the amount of information gathering that you need to do. Can you tell us about some common mistakes that people make either during incorporation or maintaining their LLCs down the line that you see that might hurt them or harm them in the long run?
Let me mention one thing, and that's why I wrote this book, Fail Not Fail, because the idea is that you set up an entity, an LLC or corporation, and you want that limited liability protection. Meaning if something bad happens within the corporation, it's the corporation's responsibility, not yours personally. But in order to have that protection, you have to follow what are called the corporate formalities. You have to have a registered agent. You have to do your minutes every year. You have to have a separate bank account. And many people realize that if the corporation hasn't followed these formalities, they can pierce through the corporate veil and get at your personal assets. And that's why I wrote that book, because it's very important to follow these corporate formalities. And what is also important to know, Disha, is that in 50% of the cases where someone is trying to pierce the corporate veil, because the corporation owns the money, the corporation doesn't have money, they want to pierce the veil and get at the individual, that succeeds 50% of the time. So people aren't following these corporate formalities. And so here at Corporate Direct, that's part of our ongoing effort, is to make sure that you stay compliant and protected under the corporate laws.
So let us get back to physicians and their needs real fast. We talked about this very important law. Can you tell us if you help physicians set up their practices if they're trying to start a private practice, and what entity you usually recommend for them?
Well, it depends on the state. California wants doctors to operate through corporations. And so in California, we set up corporations, typically taxed as an S corp, because of this funny professional law that they have. Most states allow both professional corporations and professional LLCs. And so we typically work with the CPA that the physician is going to use. It's a team effort. You really want to have your physician your CPA and your attorney on the same page, on the same team, working for you together to come up with the right answers. But the short answer is typically we either see corporations being used for physician practices, or LLCs.
Now, as far as cost efficiency goes, this is the frugal physician after all. Which one is more cost efficient?
Well, the LLC gives better asset protection. The only state that has asset protection for corporate shares is Nevada. So a lot of times you're gonna use the LLC for your practice entity because it has great asset protection, and typically it is less expensive or equal to a corporation in
Good to
terms of
know.
annual fees.
Yeah, and actually, just recently we had Sean Mullaney on, who's a CPA in California, and he talked about S corps and the laws in California requiring a corporation and then a S corp being preferred for tax purposes. And it's important. It's nice that we have this. That you guys are on now to talk about the legal side of it. So it's good to know that it is state dependent, and other states do allow for LLCs or PLLCs for physician practices. And you guys help set those up as well?
We do.
Awesome.
We do. Now, some people like the idea of the Wyoming LLC or Nevada corporation, and then you're going to bring that into another state. In many cases, you'd have to be licensed in Wyoming to practice medicine. So in a lot of cases, we're going to be using the state entity where you're practicing, where you have your licensure. And then your other assets, we can use Wyoming LLCs and other LLCs to protect them. But, a lot of doctors don't want to, they're never going to practice in Wyoming. They don't want to set up an entity in Wyoming because they have to get licensed there. So they would just use, the Utah or the California or whatever state they're in for their practice, LLC.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Well, we've gone over a lot today, and thank you so much for your time. Are there any last thoughts you'd like to leave with the audience or cover a point that we haven't covered yet?
No, I think we covered all the bases. It's really important for doctors out there to have a good corporate lawyer on their team, whether it be protecting their business, their practice itself, or protecting their assets. As we mentioned, my mom, his wife, is a doctor, so we're very familiar with physicians, and we have helped hundreds of other physicians protect their assets too. So, we can help you with getting everything set up properly, cleaning everything up, and making sure that you're complying with the new Corporate Transparency Act.
And just know that, you're going to have a LLC or corporation for your practice, but don't forget to set up those other LLCs for your assets, right? We definitely want, you may think, oh, I don't want to have 3 or 4 LLCs, but, you're working hard, you're building up your net worth, and let's protect it from the start. Because you just never know what can happen. And if you've been sued, it's too late to set up these entities, right? You have to set these up when the seas are calm. If suddenly you get sued and you decide you want to start protecting assets, it's too late. You got to do it now.
Yes, and that's the thing about asset protection, is that you really need to get on it when things are good. And a lot of people find that they only find out about these ways to protect their assets, unfortunately, after they've been sued. So don't let that be you. Get on it early. There are ways to protect your family and your assets. We do work in a very high liability field. Most of the times, most of the lawsuits that I've heard about are people that are not being grossly negligent, but people that are simply, being human, and some bad outcome occurs. And so make sure you're protected. And thank you, Ted and Garrett, for coming on the show today and sharing your wisdom. If our listeners want to contact you, how can they get in touch with you?
So you can go to corporatedirect.com. Corporatedirect.com. We have a link to where you can schedule a free 15-minute consultation with one of our incorporating specialists. They're very well versed in the field of corporate law, and they've helped many physicians too. So that's where you could check us out. We also have a lot of free information on our website. We have articles there on the Corporate Transparency Act We have articles about how doctors can protect their assets. So there's a lot of free information that you can engage. But yeah, head on over to corporatedirect.com and our team would be more than happy to help you guys out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And tell your mom hi and hello, and thank you for introducing me to you guys. I really appreciate it.
Great, we will. Thanks for having us.
All right, have a great day. Thank you to all our listeners for tuning in to Finding Financial Freedom with the Frugal Physician. Staying informed on the legal and structural aspects of your business can make all the difference in building a secure financial future. Asset protection is a key part of wealth management for physicians. If you found this episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe and join us next time as we continue to the journey towards financial freedom. Take care, and as always, stay frugal, y'all.
The content shared on this podcast should not be taken as individualized financial advice. We are here to share our knowledge and experiences, but it is crucial to consult with professionals such as accountants, financial advisors, or attorneys who can provide personalized guidance based on your specific needs.